I bet you didn't know I have some seriously sad breaking news. Kalia Posey, she starred in Toddlers and Tiaras. It came out today that she passed away. She was only 16. They don't know the reasoning or cause of her death, but there have been a lot of wild speculations. But I don't think there should be any of those until someone comes forward and says actually what happened. I think it's pretty disrespectful to make assumptions about the death, especially of a teenager. She was only 3 years old when she started doing pageants. She was a trained contortionist. Her mother has spoken out about her absolutely devastating heartbreak. I could not imagine what it would be like to be a mother and lose your child. So my thoughts are with her and her mother and the rest of her family who loved her very much. Truly a tragedy. I bet you didn't know about the haunted Emily Morgan Hotel. This story suggestion came from Plump 1984. They sent me a tip and then what they wanted me to do a TikTok on. I'll explain how you can do that too at the end of this video. It is the first skyscraper west of the Mississippi. It was built in 1924, but it served a different purpose before it was a hotel. It was 13 stories high and at that time the tallest building in San Antonio, Texas. It was built with Gothic Revival architecture. It originally operated as a medical facility. One of its most noticeable features? The terracotta gargoyles lining the building. And they all are acting as if they are suffering from a different illness. Some clutching their teeth in pain, while others hold their stomach in agony. Each one represents a different medical ailment. The downstairs levels is where the doctor's offices were. Top levels is where one of the best hospitals in the city functioned, and the basement level was the morgue. But in 1976, it was turned into an office building. Then, in 1984, it became a hotel. It was named after the infamous Emily Morgan. She lived from 1815 to 1891. She was a free woman of color. In 1835, when Emily was only 20 years old, she was contracted to become a servant for James Morgan, which she took on his surname. She was kidnapped by the Mexican cavalry, by the man in charge himself, General Santa Anna. He took a liking to Emily and had invited her over to his tent for entertainment. They say Emily slipped him a concoction that made him useless during battle, which helped the Texans win their independence in 18 minutes. She was known as the savior of Texas independence. Now, the 14th floor was known as one of the most haunted floors in the hotel. It was one of the surgical levels. People claim to have opened the doors and see hospital rooms sitting inside. But that seems impossible, since it was now a hotel. People have said they opened up doors to see ghosts standing there. The 12th floor, doors open and close by themselves. The unexplained sound of water drip, drip, dripping with no source. Lights flashing in rooms, apparitions of nurses. It's also said that the elevators activate on their own, as if someone you can't see is operating it, deciding which floor they're going to. If there's a certain story or subject you'd like for me to cover on my TikTok, you can send me a tip here on TikTok or to my Venmo or Cash App. Be sure to include your username in the notes. I'll follow you back and send you a message and ask what you would like for me to feature on my TikTok. I bet you didn't know about Marvin Heemeyer and his infamous killdozer. Yes, that's actually real. I'm not making that up. In the 1990s, Heemeyer owned a small welding shop in Granby, Colorado. Over the years, he agreed to sell part of his property to a concrete plant, though there was a lot of negotiating over the years and they couldn't really settle on a price. In 2001, the city approved the zoning for the concrete plant, zoning the land next to Heemeyer's property. Heemeyer was furious. He had used that land for the past 9 years to get from his home to his welding shop. He petitioned for the city to rezone the area so that the concrete plant couldn't be built. He was rejected on multiple occasions. So in 2003, Marvin Heemeyer decided he had enough. Over the course of about a year and a half, Marvin Heemeyer customized a Komatsu D355A bulldozer, specifically for his rampage. It was fitted with armored plates, covering the cabin and the engine. He made these plates himself using steel and concrete. What was visible was covered in 3-inch bulletproof plastic. There were 2 monitors in his makeshift cockpit, and even fans and air conditioning to keep him cool during his rampage. He had also fashioned it with some weapons as well. July 4th of 2004, Marvin Heemeyer sealed himself inside the killdozer and set off for his attack. He drove out of his shop through a wall, plowed through the concrete plant, a former judge's widow's home, a hardware store, and other homes. Authorities realized that every single place he bulldozed had a connection with Heemeyer and his lengthy battle with the zoning committee. For 2 hours and 7 minutes, Marvin was on a rampage and he could not be stopped. He took out 13 buildings and even took out the gas lines to City Hall. They actually had the National Guard coming in with Apache helicopters. They were going to take care of Marvin. But it didn't come to that. When Marvin was bulldozing a hardware store, the killdozer got stuck in the foundation. He was unable to move. He knew he had hit the end of his rampage. So right there in the cockpit, he took his own life. Despite doing $7 million in damages, Marvin was the only one who had been killed by this. For years after the killdozer incident, people argued whether Marvin was a hero or not. They said he could have killed innocent people if he wanted to, but he didn't. Some people said he snapped because he'd become a victim of the town government. Marvin left behind a note that said, "I was willing to be reasonable until I had to be unreasonable. Sometimes reasonable men must do unreasonable things." I bet you didn't know one woman got so angry at a PTA meeting that she tried to ruin another woman's life. PTA President Kelly Peters. She was doing her usual PTA parent kind of thing and supervising some kids as they were playing tennis. That's when Jill Easter showed up to pick up her son. Easter asked Peters, "Hey, why isn't my son waiting for me?" And Peters responded, "Oh, he's probably just a little slow to line up." Jill Peters then audibly yelled, "I will get you," and stormed off with her son. From that moment on, Jill Easter made it her mission to ruin Kelly Peters' life. Jill wrote a very strong-worded letter to the PTA, demanding that Kelly be fired. She claimed that Kelly had left her son unsupervised, which caused extreme panic attacks. Obviously, there was no evidence of this, and they ignored her complaint. When that didn't work, Jill took it a step further. Jill filed a straight-up lawsuit against Kelly. What did she file a lawsuit for? She said Kelly was stalking her and going to murder her. This bogus lawsuit dragged out for over a year, but everything changed when a phone call was made. An anonymous caller called in and said they saw Kelly driving erratically. They were concerned she might be using substances and could potentially hurt someone on the school grounds. So authorities went and checked Kelly's car. They found a massive amount of illegal substances. Like a whole lot. But surveillance footage showed that it was Jill who had planted them in Kelly's car. And Jill's DNA was all over the paraphernalia. Jill was arrested and put in jail for a few months. And then Kelly sued her for millions of dollars. And she won. All because of the weirdest misunderstanding at a PTA meeting. Was that petty or what?